Hey, Jason Bradley from Community Solutions, Minnesota. We just started an Instagram account that I want to tell you guys about because we're finding all this great stuff across the state of Minnesota, and we have to share it with you. You're going to find exclusive content that is not going to be anywhere else on the web. We're going to give you behind-the-scenes looks at our podcasts, our tour of roundabouts, the mixed-use development that we find, our keynote addresses, all this stuff that is going to have a great story along with it that you can share with your friends and your neighbors so that they understand what's going on in their cities as well. Where can you find it? COMM Solutions MN on Instagram. Thank you very much. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. So now please share it, get out there, and let's tell our story, Minnesota. Thank you.
I was born in a crossfire hurricane, and I howled at my ma in the driving rain. But it's all right now. In fact, it's a gas. This is the Community Solutions Podcast. I am Jason Bradley, as always with me, Andrew Richter.
Now, question, what song did that come from?
Jumpin' Jack Flash, Rolling Stones.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I've heard of them.
Yeah, I hope so.
Listening to them gives me a lot of satisfaction.
There you go. Good.
Can I make one request to the Rolling Stones? Okay. I do like their music. Okay.
Okay.
But Mick Jagger always wears a shirt that's 4 sizes too small, and I don't need to see his back hair and stuff every time he's singing. Just wear a shirt that fits. I know you're 70 years old and you're still out there acting like you're 20. And I have a certain amount of respect for that.
I do too.
So, but just wear if you got to put on a 2X. Or put on an XL, just do it.
Yeah, he's not a 2X, I'll guarantee
he's
that.
He's probably a large.
He might be a large or medium.
But he's wearing, a women's V-neck short, and I think he needs to wear something bigger than that. Well,
duly noted. If I ever meet him, I'll make sure to file that complaint right
if you meet him
in his
before
lapel
me,
pocket.
If you meet him before me, because I'm going to tell him if I ever
Fantastic. Well, wow, what a week. There's been some incredible things going on around the metro. I know we've kind of made our way around the metro. We did a keynote in an undisclosed area north of here earlier in the week. We just got done doing a podcast with Jack and Ben at the Up and Adam show. So we're raring to go.
It's always good to be on the program. Great to be asked to come on the program. It's always wonderful.
Absolutely.
By the way, we also hope you caught our interview with Jeff Johnson. That was a couple of weeks ago. And it was a great thing. It was a good interview. He did very well. It was good to have him on, and I just want to thank Jeff again for coming on. It was great. It was good because he was not here with us, and so it was a little logistic challenge, but I thought the interview went pretty well.
I thought it went great. Yeah, that's episode 34 for any that want to go back and listen to that.
And by the way, if he gets elected governor, remember we talked about him appointing people?
Right.
I think I'm now a leading candidate.
You might be.
I mean, I said, look, I don't even want a salary. Just put me in charge of something, and I'll clean it up.
Although he was pretty impressed of if I'm on the Met Council, I'll do absolutely nothing. He did like that. That's a great platform, I think, for that position.
Sometimes doing nothing is better than doing something.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, why wouldn't it be? But that said, I mean, it was a good interview, and anybody else, not that we want to make this a platform for people that are running for stuff, but at the same time, I mean, we do want to talk local politics with people that could someday be making decisions for us, and so we want to make sure that we throw that opportunity out there as well. And just so you know, I mean, you'll get a fair chance to talk about what you're running for, but it's going to be in the context of how it relates to local issues.
Yeah, and here's the thing too with local candidates. We talk all the time about local people running, making a difference, all that. that means we got to have them on the program. I mean, it's as simple as that. If you got somebody out there working their butt off, we want them here.
Absolutely.
This is their forum, and it is a platform to a certain extent to running for higher office. But, our interview with Jeff was a lot focused on his experience in Hennepin County.
Right.
And, what he thought that he could change if elected governor. So, episode 34, go back and listen to it. It's not one of our longer ones. So,
with everything together, the local lowdown and everything, it was about an hour.
Yeah, Jeff was the last 35 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Of that, so.
But yeah, even to just catch that segment of it, I think it's well worth your time when you're considering who you're going to pull the lever for. And we're not endorsing one person over another, but we are saying, hey, it's worth noting how some of these people that are going to have power to in Jeff's case, it would be to veto or approve a bill that could affect you at the local level. I think that is a big deal.
Of course, all of our shows are good, so you don't want to miss any of them. You just want to put a star next to one or two there. You don't want to miss this one either, my friends, because we're going to talk today. I assume if you're listening to this program, you probably have a car. Probably used to. If you don't right now, you're going to get one if you don't have one right now.
Unless you're some, some new whatever. You live in Minneapolis. You want
a new age millennial who can't get their face out of their phone.
Well, I'm not much better, but
yeah, that's true.
But when you're right, though. I mean, for the most part, the Twin Cities is a driving community, and that's because it's so spread out. It's not compact. It's not dense enough to where we can have transit going everywhere. It's just not. And
it never will be.
No, it never will be.
Most metropolitan areas aren't.
No.
You've got a handful. You've got New York, Chicago.
D.C.
Yeah, and you've got a few others maybe. L.A. doesn't have a very good transit system.
No.
San Francisco
but even that's spread out.
Yeah.
L.A. is really spread out.
Yeah, and especially if you consider I don't know what they consider a suburb of Los Angeles, but you go all the way to Anaheim, it can be an hour drive.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no light rail that goes from Los Angeles to Anaheim. But you have a car, my friends. You're paying a lot for that car.
You are, and not just for the car, not just for maintenance, not just for
transporting dead bodies,
whatever you do.
For your case, putting all your band equipment in.
That's true. I do plenty of that,
But you're paying a lot in, the big T word.
Tariffs?
Taxes. No, not tariffs.
Oh.
Nope. Toyotas and Hondas are made here. I get in arguments all the time about buying American. I'm like, they're all made in.
Yeah.
Where's the big Toyota? Kentucky? Is that where it is?
Is it Kentucky or Tennessee? It's somewhere over there. But yeah, they may be headquartered overseas, but you're still supporting some American jobs, which is good because the plants are. A lot of plants are here as well as the ones back where they're headquartered and all over the world. You've got Land Rover that's all over the world. When I was in Haiti, I remember riding in a Land Rover, and that's like, I could get used to this. As terrible conditions as that was back in 2010, right after the earthquake, but you've got groups that come in and they bring in vehicles like that, they've got to be produced somewhere, and you can't ship them all from one place in the world. It's just not cost effective anymore. So.
And again, remember, those costs are passed off onto the customer.
Right. Anyways.
You're paying a lot in taxes.
That's true.
Folks. And it's not just gas taxes. That's one part of it. But there's also license tab fees, motor vehicle sales taxes.
Wheelage like Jeff had talked about.
Yep,
yeah.
Here in Hennepin County and other places, too, that have enacted that. But we kind of want to give you a breakdown of where your money is going. And we're going to bring it back to local government. Because there's all these funding formulas and programs and blah, blah, blah that is, I don't know if forced on your local government is the right way to put it, But the local government is sort of subject to. Your local government doesn't collect gas taxes.
No. Not yet, anyway, until they can figure out a way to do that.
They'll subsidize a bunch of Super Americas and holiday gas stations. And somehow bring Quick Trip. I like Quick Trip.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So at a federal, so you go fill up with gas, okay, and we'll just make the math easy.
Okay.
Say it's $2 a gallon.
Okay.
If it's $2 a gallon, and then you go in, you don't pay sales tax on it because the taxes are built into it.
Right.
Pump. 28.6 cents of that is going to the state of Minnesota.
Yeah.
18.4 is going to the federal government.
Yes.
Now, stop and think for a minute. So you fill up, before you blame oil companies for your problems here, if it's $2 a gallon, 47 cents of that is going to the federal or state government here in Minnesota. Now, Minnesota, believe it or not, is about in the middle.
That's true.
And I'm at the taxfoundation.org, which has the 2017 numbers.
Look at you getting all techie on me.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's this thing called an app. And no, I'm just kidding. And that does a ranking of the gas taxes nationwide. Minnesota is number 26 out of 50.
Right, smack dab in the middle.
We're behind the times here.
We should be Pennsylvania.
We got to get up to the income and sales tax levels that we're normally at. Yeah, I mean, and we should mention something that because this funding is very convoluted, you might be surprised at some of the states that are high or low on this list.
Right.
Because you have to remember, some states have limited transit. Some states don't have a ton of highways. Some states, obviously are bigger and smaller. Some states don't have an income tax. Some states have toll roads that affects, they may have a lower gas tax, but they may have a toll road.
Right.
Which kind of goes in between. I think a state like Indiana fits that a lot. They have
Texas has some toll roads. They have lower taxes than us, gas taxes than us.
Very much so. And of course, no income tax. So you can see that. Or you could be Illinois and be bad all over the place.
Well, there is that, yeah.
So it isn't as red and blue necessarily as you think it is sometimes. However, you mentioned Pennsylvania.
Yes, I did.
58 cents.
I know.
A gallon. Is that nuts?
I wish there was a way to drive around Pennsylvania if I was going to the East Coast, which I'm not anytime soon that I know of.
The only time I want to go there is to go to the Baseball Hall of Fame. That's on my...
Well, you're stopping short of the East Coast then.
No. But I'd have to go through Pennsylvania to get through to Cooperstown.
Yeah.
Yep. So... Well... maybe I could go through West Virginia.
That's a long ways around to go West Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, and up into New York.
Yeah, I'd like to avoid New Jersey.
I mean that's that's high. New York's high. Florida's high. That's 36.8 cents a gallon, and they don't. They like Texas don't have the income tax. And
I was a little head scratching at that.
Yeah.
Why they would be so high. I was trying to think of a reason.
I suppose I don't think they have toll roads. Oh, they do have toll roads.
They do in the northern part.
Well, I know Orlando out to Tampa, there's a toll road as well.
I was just there in Fort Myers, though, is where I was to watch the Twins. So I wasn't up in the central part of the state. So.
Yeah, so they do have toll roads as well. So, that's a big difference. I mean, 16.8 cents a gallon. And I would argue that Texas probably has more miles of road to cover as well.
They've got to. I mean, the only thing I can think of is one state's getting more federal money, or they've got lower license tabs, or they've got something like that explains that. But that, like I said, it really doesn't make sense. Red or blue. Now, of course, there's the usual blue states. California, Washington, there's New York, Hawaii, which is interesting. I mean, I don't know how many people drive out there, but it must be the cost of
getting the gas there. But then
But
how does that affect the government? Why is the government getting more of the share of the money?
It makes no sense whatsoever. Michigan is very high.
Yeah.
And even though they've been trending red,
right.
North Carolina is high. It's sort of weird. And then you go out and look at the states that are very low. Alaska, that makes sense.
Yeah.
South Carolina, Oklahoma, Missouri, Mississippi, Arizona, New Mexico,
Louisiana, Arkansas, out west. I mean, Colorado is 22 cents. New Mexico is 18.88 cents. Arizona is 19 cents. I mean, that's
just how is it possible? Okay, that say Pennsylvania, one of the bigger states,
right?
Why are they double what like Ohio is next door?
It's a good question.
I mean, look at Minnesota and Wisconsin are fairly close in dollars.
Right.
I mean, Wisconsin's number 17, but it's only 4 cents more. Mm-hmm. And, of course, they have lower everything else.
Right.
But, I mean, why would it be so off with, similar states close to the same size and next to each other?
That's a great question.
I don't know. There's just, I mean, how come a state like Connecticut is so high? They're number 6, the 6th highest. Connecticut is like the size of Aiken County, and yet they've got a humongous gas tax.
Exactly. I mean, you could almost drive across it with a 3-wood.
A dog sled across it in 2 hours. I mean, it's just...
But I suppose I don't know.
Is it just that they're run by? We know who they're run by.
Well, we know who they're run by. It is more dense, so I suppose the roads are more compact. Lot sizes are smaller. You're not going to find a lot of rural Connecticut. It exists, but it's a smaller state. You're not going to find a lot of rural Rhode Island. It exists. Fewer
drivers.
Yeah. I don't know. So the wear and tear probably is less. So I don't get it. It seems like it's. Well, I mean, that's the beautiful thing though about our republic is that it has allowed for the states to be a laboratory of democracy, where every state's different, which we should want to preserve because. As we've seen,
no one size fits all.
No one size fits all. That's what we preach here, when it comes to the different counties in Minnesota, the different cities in Minnesota. You're all different. Land mass is different. Land
demographics are different. Income levels.
Resources. It is, yeah. So why would we want to have one uniform tax rate per state across the nation? I don't think we do. It just makes me want to avoid Pennsylvania.
Right, and it's just I just wonder how many people when they go to the Pennsylvania has raised their gas tax too recently.
Oh, that's.
I wonder how many people thought, it must be big oil trying to screw us. No, it was the people you elected trying to screw you.
Right, exactly. And I mean, if it was the oil people, it would be going up everywhere by the same margin.
And the same thing is every time gas prices go up, how come nobody says, hey, the oil companies, you go eat it, you go lower prices and put a bunch of people out of work? How come nobody says to government, well, why don't you get rid of the tax for 6 months?
Right.
And let us just drive, take that 28.6 cents a gallon off, and let us drive. I mean, you expect the oil companies to take a pay cut. How come you never have to?
Exactly.
So
government never takes a pay cut.
But it just amazes me when you're out there paying $2 a gallon or whatever it is right now. I think it was $2.30 maybe last time I got gas. Actually, it reminds me I need it.
$2.40 I think
is
when
it?
I got
okay.
it. Yeah.
But 47 cents of that is going to the state and federal government every time you get gas here in Minnesota. Now, it's also worth noting when you talk about transportation spending in Minnesota. Now, when you say transportation, we aren't just talking roads.
Exactly. They collect this gas tax. What do they do with it?
Right. And there's some things that are mandated through referendum or through state law, and some things that aren't.
Right.
And so where's this money going? Well, there's 3 main I should say 4 because I'm going to count the FTA as the 4th, the Federal Transportation Administration.
All right.
I'm going to count them, but you have your gas taxes. You have what you pay every single year, what I just paid about a month ago.
Right.
My tabs. And your tabs have things in there too. They have Hennepin County has something called a wheelage tax, which we'll get into later. But when you pay your license tabs, also there is the motor vehicle sales tax, which is on the MVST. That's the acronym. You'll see that a lot when you talk about transportation, and that has certain dedicated parts that it has to go through too.
Right.
So there's a lot of money. And now you take that with the federal government, and there's a lot of money being poured into quote-unquote transportation, however you want to call it.
Right. In transportation, transit, it gets rolled in there. I mean, it's not just your roads.
Yeah, and we've had I can't remember what year the constitutional amendment was passed to make the gas tax in particular, I think it was the gas tax, go only to roads and bridges. I don't recall. 2004, I want to say. It was before the legacy money. That's what I remember.
Right, it was.
But it forced something to be a dedicated fund. I didn't have time to look it up. So if you take the gas tax and the license tab fees, they are spent on roads and bridges.
Right.
62% goes into our highway fund in Minnesota. 29% goes to the counties, and 9% goes into municipal street aid. So that is the breakdown of those two. If you go to the motor vehicle sales tax,
yes,
this is where it gets touchy. 60% of that money goes into roads. 36% of that money goes to transit in the Twin Cities. 4% goes to transit in greater Minnesota. That's the breakdown, and that's $360 million annually that brings in.
Right.
So that money gets siphoned off into subsidizing transit. Now, and it's very Twin Cities centric.
Right.
This is by state statute, Minnesota State Statute 162.
Well, I imagine that most of the roads are here. And I want to say I'm not against the gas tax. Right. I mean, we have to repair our roads somehow. We can't just think they're magically going to be paid for. I mean, they're expensive. Yeah. So it's not as much of a libertarian as I consider myself to be especially in taxes. It still is, I think, a necessary part of how we get from point A to point B, because that's what gives us our freedom is being able to drive versus having to be on public transit.
Right, but remember what the gas tax was intended to be. It was intended to be exactly that, a user fee.
Right.
You drove, you paid it.
Right.
You don't drive, you don't pay it.
Right.
What it's has become drivers subsidizing everything.
Exactly. And that includes bike paths, right, walking trails, and not that I'm pro taxes. I want to throw this out there again that I'm not. But in this case, you've got drivers paying for all of this, even road reconstruction to create complete streets, which includes bike lanes. Maybe it's time for bicyclists to have some sort of a permit on their bike.
Well,
that they renew every year.
Why don't we have instead of a motor vehicle sales tax, why don't we have a bicycling sales tax?
Right.
Why don't they have some money at stake in the game, just like drivers do? And by the way, when you talk about roads and bridges, you're talking about exactly that. That's why complete streets is such a big deal, because you want those sidewalks and those bike lanes. Well, if you get it into, that is what gas tax and license tab fees can be spent on.
Right.
It's a road, isn't it?
It is.
So, voila. And with 29% of that money going to counties.
Yes.
It's the counties that are adopting complete streets and pushing their cities to do exactly the same. Now, here's the thing, too. When you look at... Let me back up a second.
Okay.
I am very lukewarm on... I want to go back to this referendum thing.
Okay.
I'm lukewarm, even though I believe that this should be put to roads and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Aren't you a little lukewarm on referendums that call for a specific fund to be spent in a specific place? I think of a place like California, where that is so out of control. Now go back to Prop 98. 40% of state spending has to be spent on education.
Mm-hmm.
No, there could be a volcano that explodes somewhere. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Doesn't matter who's the governor, I mean, we are a representative republic, and to me, to put that on the ballot, I think it's led to an increase in the motor vehicle sales tax, because that's where the transit advocates have gone to go get their money.
Right. Because
they know they can't get it from gas tax or license tab fees.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of led into this convoluted... I think that's where it should go, but I don't know. You look at something like the Legacy Amendment. I know I'm getting off subject, but how many people can... I can't even explain what that was exactly. They were mandated to spend on it. There's no discretion allowed.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's also no incentive for the price to ever go down.
Right.
Does every road have to cost $5 million a mile? I mean, it just seems like the cost is just astronomical.
Well, and we know, though, too, they don't go search for the best deals on things. When you're government, you get into business with somebody, and you don't necessarily go and look for the cheapest asphalt. You don't necessarily hire the cheapest construction crews.
And sometimes you shouldn't.
That's true. I mean, sometimes you get what you pay for. It's not always about the cheapest. But we know that government, take here in the metro, where a lot of the cities use the same developer for everything, and everything looks the same. And it's, and it's not, I don't know, they've given special deals to this person or that person, or where... the city streets, all those redevelopment phases, they all went to the same contracting crew, Should they have? I mean, I don't know. That's a discussion that...
Well, the other thing that bothers me is it ought to be done by need.
Right.
And I think too often it's done... how do they decide what road gets fixed and what highway gets fixed? And, are they taking the roads that really need it the most? Or is it some legislator getting money for their...
Right.
And look, all these legislators do is whine about this. There's a lot of roads in greater Minnesota. A lot.
Yes.
And there's not that many municipal roads. There's
Mm-hmm.
very little. You go to a city of 700 people, there's not very many municipal roads there.
No, far more state roads. Yeah. County roads.
You got one highway or one county road going through that city, and that's pretty much it.
Right.
But greater Minnesota likes to try to talk about how they're getting screwed all the time, and they are to a certain extent because a disproportionate amount of money is spent in the Twin Cities, especially when it comes to transit. But, I mean... I don't know how you can develop a system where everybody's not going to... To me, if everybody's pissed off, it's not so bad.
Yeah, if everybody is. But, I mean, to piggyback on that, there are a lot more state and county roads outstate. There are plenty in the metro. But it is because there's this disproportionate siphoning of money into transit. Greater Minnesota's not getting it.
Yeah, and it's just, the whole system, I don't even know where I'd begin to reform this. Municipal street aid, I want to bring it to cities. There is a formula, as there is with everything in Minnesota. You hire an IRS auditor or you hire a baseball sabermetrics dork to come up with some mathematician formula that nobody can understand, to you can tell what I think of baseball sabermetrics. We want everybody to be the same. And that spits out some municipal aid dollars. Now, let's be real specific here. The MSA program, most cities don't qualify for. I don't remember. I think it's only about 150 cities in the state, I want to say. Somewhere around there. Because you have to have a population of 5,000 or greater. And you pretty much have to apply for this money. And there's only so much you can get, so much you can spend in a year.
Right.
And they put a whole bunch of requirements on this stuff. This is where you get a state aid road. And if you've seen one of those, you know what I'm talking about. You've got no parking on one side.
Right.
You've got like a stripe and like a little bit of parking or something on the other.
Mm-hmm.
And
sidewalk.
There's a sidewalk on one side. And the whole purpose of this has to connect from one busy street to another.
Right.
A good example, go down in Crystal, you got Rockford Road and you've got Douglas Drive.
Yes.
If you go down, I believe it's Hampshire, down to 38th, it will go from Rockford Road down to 38th over to Douglas Drive.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that street. It's different than the other streets.
It is.
And that is a state aid road. When that was redone, they had to designate that as a state aid road. They also require cities to do what's called a feasibility study.
Mm-hmm.
To get this money. Now, a feasibility study is not, for $9.95 over at
no,
Trader Joe's.
You have to hire a consultant to come in, and it's expensive.
Typically, they're over $50,000 just to do a study. And of course, when you're doing phase plans or something in the city, every study's pretty much the same. I mean, it's not hugely different. I mean, we'll pick on Crystal because of the phase plans there. State aid paid for about maybe 10% of the construction throughout the phases of street reconstruction. The assessments paid for maybe 2/3 of it, and the rest was paid by the revolving street fund that the city has in the comprehensive annual financial report. So it wasn't your huge assessment was not all the money and all your tax dollars that were spent on that. It was about 2/3, somewhere between 60 and 70%, actually came from the assessment. The street reconstruction fund and MSA dollars supplemented that. So lots of money. So the state taxpayers paid for part of that municipal road. Your normal taxes through the general fund, which gets siphoned into street maintenance, paid for part of it. And then, of course, the assessment on your house paid for most of it.
Right.
Doesn't that make you feel good, Jay, that they picked 3 different pockets to pay for the road out and the curb?
Spread the wealth, right? I mean, well, not really. It's just I'm paying for it 3 different ways. What you going to do? And that just amazes me to think about, and then you have groups like League of Minnesota Cities that want to say that the majority of roads, in fact, like 84% are ineligible for some of this funding, and that it's the responsibility of property taxpayers. And
you're talking about municipal roads,
right? Municipal streets, But
you know what I think of that, and what you think of that. The first way I'd solve this problem, by the way, we didn't even talk about federal money yet.
Right.
And there's a lot of that comes not just to the state, but to county government, to the Met Council, everywhere. Almost impossible to calculate.
It is.
And, but I think that the federal government should be paying for interstates.
Yes.
State government should be paying for state and trunk highways.
Yep.
County government for county roads.
Yep.
And municipals. That, to me,
that's simple.
Just solved every problem that we're talking about.
I understand that. That makes sense to me. The fact that federal money or state money gets thrown in with local money for municipal roads or county roads, or that cities are expected to help pay for county roads, that are getting redone because the county doesn't want to pay for all of it. It gets to be more complicated than it needs to be.
Well, and how do you hold anybody accountable when there's 10 different arms from MnDOT to whoever else involved in a project?
Exactly. Too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah, and it's funny to listen to the League of Minnesota Cities. They complain about the state or the federal governments, yet they want to be cut all those free checks.
Right.
Give us all that free money, but if they had some sort of consistency or some sort of principles behind that, but it's just they want to just open the floodgates, and the state and the feds should be paying for every city expense on the face of the earth if they had their way.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and I'll tell you what else. Here's what I'd like to know. When you're talking about something like county aid, county road aid, 29%, okay, of this gas tax and license tab fees is going to counties.
Right.
So I want to know how much money is lost in paying for the gas tax, sending it to the state of Minnesota, having the state of Minnesota try to figure out who the hell gets what or put it in some formula. Of course, we have to pay the people to do that, and then try to spit it out to counties. You've got counties lobbying for it at your tax dollar expense, I might add.
Right.
How do we calculate how much of those billions are actually spent on the project?
Yeah, that's again. I mean, it's all contained in Minnesota Statute 162.07, and if you can understand it better than us, more power to you. But it says that there's two statutory formulas. So it's like when you're dealing with county roads. And why isn't there one? I don't know. It's crazy.
Here's my question. Why can't I just pay my city, have my city fix my municipal road, and directly hold them accountable to whether I think they did a good job or a bad job or whatever? But the cities can sit there and absolve themselves to a certain extent from responsibility. Well, we're not getting the state aid money that we were blah, 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 blah. And I don't want them to have that out. I don't want them to have the out of saying it's somebody else's fault. You look at Hennepin County, for example, and we mentioned the show with Jeff Johnson. Do you know that their levy, only pays for about half their budget?
Yeah.
Because of the state money, federal money, everything else that is thrown in there. And then they enact a wheelage tax on top of it, as if that's not enough. And Jeff explained it better than we can, but the legislature gave counties the option or something. I think they weren't going to increase the gas tax or do anything that the governor wanted to do. They said, look, if you think you're underfunded, you go raise your own tax. We're not going to give you any more money. So, of course, counties like Hennepin County followed suit and put the wheelage tax, which goes on your license tab fee.
Mm-hmm.
So now that is now part of being siphoned off by your county.
Huh.
So think about that now.
Right.
If you're paying, say your tabs are $100, so just throw that out there. Part of that $100 goes to administration and blah, blah, blah. 10 of those dollars goes to the county. I'm curious how much of that money actually gets spent on constructing or reconstructing or repaving or repairing a bridge or a road.
Right. Well, and looking back at that Minnesota statute, I mean, there is a difference. If you're in a rural county, it says an amount equal to a levy of 0.01596% on each rural county's total estimated market value for the last preceding calendar year shall be computed and shall be subtracted from the county's total estimated construction costs. And the result thereof shall be the money needs of the county. So, but then
I ran out of fingers.
Yeah,
there.
For urban counties, it's 0.00967%.
So who came up with that? That's what I'd like to know. Who came up with that?
Yeah, well, the legislature. But, I mean, who did they hire to come up with that? Because you know that Lyndon Carlson wasn't sitting in his office and with a calculator and a
he was
bottle
around.
of
he still reminisces. Still reminisces about protesting the Spanish-American War. But the thing I just keep and you look at you just look at this convoluted mess, and you just wonder how could you start to fix it, and you look at all the money going to transit, to subsidize transit,
right?
From gas tax dollars to sales tax dollars, because that part of that's siphoned as well. And again, it's all on the one hand, I'm out filling up my gas, or I'm out buying a car because it's a sales tax. I'm out buying a car in Moorhead,
right? And
then that part of that money is being spent on light rail going from the Mall of America to downtown.
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, a total transfer of wealth in that regard. So, transit is taking its fair share of dough. And also from the federal government as well, because there's a lot of restrictions with federal money.
Right.
There's a lot of things you have to do, so on and so forth. And to say this highway fund, I mean, this money, 62% is going to roads and bridges, and probably much less than that is actually being spent on that.
And that's trunk highway
roads
and bridges.
Yeah. So, and of course, county aid. I mean, how come counties can't pay for their own roads?
I don't know. Well, apparently they can, except for 29%.
Well, that's a lot of money.
Across the state. And as we've seen county to county, I mean, that differs based on where you're at. And then the 9% that goes to municipal street aid. It's a weird formula.
Does Minnesota have a formula that's not weird? The education formula. Explain that to me. There's 5 people in the state that can do it.
Probably.
And this is where I'll tell you what. This is where we need structural changes, not one-time cuts, not a Band-Aid on cancer.
Right.
And we need some real ideas to be placed forward. We need some cities to stop taking free money and go your own way. Hey, you know what? You don't take MSA. I don't need an MSA road.
Yeah.
I don't need to put a sidewalk there that no one uses.
That's true.
I mean, remember, that's your tax dollars. It ain't free. So, I mean, but I'll tell you, if you're in a city, you're running for city council, you're going to see MSA.
Yeah.
What is that? And that's what it is, municipal street aid.
You need to be prepared.
Yeah.
Where do you stand on it? Because
and even understanding it is a challenge, because city staff doesn't make it easy.
No. And they're just going to come to you and they're going to say, hey, we have a chance to have the state government give us some free money to help with these roads. I think we need to do this, because then we're not on the hook for 100% of it. And so it doesn't make sense, really. I mean, so the state comes in and pays for one of your roads in your city. Granted, cities are expensive, and it's usually it's not always, but it's often going to be a city or a street rather, that has, more businesses or things that you can't assess against as easily.
Well, they do pay money into the project, not just for the MSA road, but that MSA road is part of getting the money.
Right.
So it's sort of just like the feasibility study.
Right.
You've got to spend that money to get the free money.
Yeah.
So it ain't so free when you think about it like that.
It's not.
And I'll tell you, there's no incentive for costs to go down. There's no incentive for anything like that to happen. I'm just curious, what are the odds? I mean, what are the odds that our taxes on a per gallon basis ever go down in the state of Minnesota? Where would you put those odds?
Pretty close to zero. Yeah. When has a tax ever gone down?
Not for any length of time.
I mean, sometimes the federal income tax or the state income tax can fluctuate depending on who's in control, but generally your lesser known taxes, I mean, especially the ones they see more as fees for usage or whatever, they don't go down.
Yeah, but I mean, again, the vision of the gas tax was not to be taken and spread around to 5 million different places.
Right.
The intention of the federal gas tax was not to be put in some formula to be sent out to the Met Council or something like that. It was for interstate highways and their maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
And now I wonder what percentage of that actually goes to that.
I don't know, and it's funny because if you listen to a group like League of Minnesota Cities, I mean, they're going to tell you that 95% is distributed into dedicated highway funds. They're going to tell you that because under the Constitution of Minnesota, revenues generated from the state gas tax and vehicle registration can only be used for roads and bridges, and that only 40% of the motor vehicle sales tax can go and be spent on transit.
Right, and they're advocating to take away those restrictions.
Yes, they are.
They want more and more. They actually want more away from roads. Here's the thing about the League of Minnesota Cities. How do you complain that municipal streets aren't getting enough state aid and at the same time advocate for less money spent on roads and bridges?
Right.
It makes, of course, I'm sure they favor a gas tax increase.
I'm sure they do.
No doubt about it. Probably favor cities to be able to enact their own gas tax.
Yeah.
Who knows? They want a payroll tax. They want cities to be able to do that.
Yeah, if cities are able to institute that kind of thing, choose their own minimum wage, all of these other things that we talk about, why can't they decide how much you're going to pay for gas in their city? Why, and granted, right now the legislature doesn't allow for that.
There's some cities of certain size have their own ability,
right?
Sales tax,
or sales tax wise, yes. But I'm sure that the full force and power of their lobbying arm, works toward that stuff.
I want a bike sales tax. That's what I want.
That would be good. Again, I'm not an advocate of taxes, but if motor vehicle, sales, motor vehicle owners are paying for the usage of the road, it should be shared with all who use the road.
Complete streets. Remember, all users.
Right.
So should all users pay for them then too?
Now, I don't know how to institute a pedestrian tax, but for bikes, it's easy. Yeah.
Sure. You want to walk on the street? Put in a quarter.
Yeah. You buy a bike in Minnesota, you add X amount on to help pay for the bike paths. Those bike paths don't last forever. Sure, bikes are light. They're made lighter and lighter and lighter all the time. Your racing bikes are super light, but I guarantee you that even if nobody rode on that bike path, which happens with majority of bike paths anyway, where barely anybody rides on them, but it's going to deteriorate over time and it's going to need to be replaced.
Yeah, weather, things like that take their toll on asphalt. It just does. So let's advocate for that. Hey, and you're not going to hear me and Jay advocate for new taxes very often.
No.
Now my preference,
rare.
My preference would be to add a bike tax and take away 25 others. But just for this, if you want streets for all users, and I'm curious what these bicycling coalition groups have to say about this, because that I want a bike sales tax.
I like the idea.
And here's another one. I'm going to enact a new constitutional amendment here in Minnesota that the bike tax, okay, the bike sales tax that we are enacting,
yes,
has to go. That the gas tax and the license tab fees cannot pay for a bike path or a bike lane.
Mm-hmm.
It must come from the bicycle sales tax.
Absolutely. I like this because we are Community Solutions. We're all about solutions here.
We always have solutions.
You know, people say, the old Crystal Council used to say, you guys just complain about stuff. No, we actually do have solutions. And
well,
I
if they wouldn't have given us so much to complain about, we wouldn't have had that problem. We had to correct them so many times that, you know, but I mean, seriously, I mean, you want to have, how about this? You know, you want to have a bike path between, say, Elm Creek Park, and there probably already is one.
Right.
And make up a Weaver Lake Park. I'll just make it up. There probably already is.
Yeah.
Okay. Who pays for that is the bike sales tax. You don't take that out of motor vehicle sales tax.
Nope.
You don't take that out of anywhere else. You want to have a complete street? We're going to have a formula.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to invent a formula. 0.00096 minus whatever. And part of that has to come from the bike sales tax.
Wow, I like that. Now, thinking about this, I mean, what would that tax have to be in order for the amount of bicycle sales on an annual basis to take care of the miles of bicycle paths that are not only existing, but being created?
Yeah, and you've got the federal government. They're going to have to come in and enact one, too. Hey, it's okay if they do it on cars.
Right.
Why not on bikes, too?
And
I'll tell you what else. How about like four-wheelers and things like that go tracing through the woods? The Lucy Line Trail. That's
right.
I can't remember who's in charge of that, but, you know, you've got that. It might be the Park District.
Right.
You've got that being financed by our tax dollars, too. I am advocating for the three-wheeler, all-wheel ATV sales tax.
Yeah, because you're going to have that as well. You have the Munger Trail up north that goes for how many miles?
A lot.
That's a long trail. Yeah. It's the Sioux Line Trail, which goes miles, you know. You've got that one... is that the Munger? Which one is that goes from like Cloquet up to Duluth, like West Duluth? I mean, that's 27 miles of trail.
Yeah, so let's have the users who use that. You know, I don't use that.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know.
Well, I own a bicycle. I mean, okay.
Well, maybe I've tried to ride a bike, but I'm not in the best shape, so it's a little goofy watching me on one. I'll tell you, the second I got a driver's license, I didn't bike very much anymore.
Well, that's true. I biked a lot less at that point, but
that's the thing. I mean, we've got if to me, it just is not fair to put everything on the backs of drivers.
Right.
That if we want everybody to be able to use a road, everybody ought to be paying for that road.
Right.
Including bicyclists, including ATVs and their trails. We're building them all over. There are plans to build a lot more than we've got.
Oh,
regional trails.
Bike Minnesota. BikeMN.org says that 250 plus Minnesota cities are working on creating walk and bike master plans, updating municipal plans to include complete streets with sidewalks and crosswalks, increasing access to parks, bikeways, and recreational facilities, connecting and promoting trail systems, and collaborating on projects that improve walkability and bikeability.
Bikeability.
Yes.
Is that your ability to ride a bike or the condition? You want bikeability? Maybe you got to get rid of winter.
Maybe. What can we do about that, Bike Minnesota? Let's hear your plans, because right now for the 2.5 weeks that we can ride a bike in Minnesota, I mean, I've seen downtown in the middle of January and February these people that think, oh, I'm gonna be trendy and bike, and they have icicles hanging from everywhere and they look like a Yeti. You know, I've seen it. Okay, that's great. You've proven your point. You can bike year round in Minnesota, but unless you have a mental illness, why would you?
Or a death wish. I don't know.
A death wish. Maybe that's more fair.
But again, the ATV dedicated sales tax.
Right.
The bike, you want bikeability? The bike sales tax.
And why not? I mean, they state that.
Do they advocate for a specific bike tax?
Oh no! But they do say 4,100 bicyclists ride on the Midtown Greenway every day as an average. Maybe that should be a tollway where you pay to get on and off the Midway.
Well, yeah. Why shouldn't the people who
Greenway.
are using it pay for it?
I think that's another thing we should maybe think about. But here's the thing: these people, you bring this up, and they're going to go, "Oh no, you can't tax us," but you can tax the car drivers, right? What's the difference?
What they want it for free. That's the difference. Exactly.
But they're stating, I mean, there's been a 78% increase in bicycling in the metro area since 2007. 13% increase in bicycling from exactly. They don't give any kind of bibliography here to tell what kind of studies.
78% in the Twin Cities?
Yeah, since 2007.
Okay, so who's going out counting all the people riding their bike?
Yeah. I don't know. That's
what they do, survey 400 people, and we went from 30 people biking to 50 people biking, so that was a huge increase?
Well, here's something great that this says. We should use these numbers. I think they're fair. Bicycling contributes to more than 5,000 jobs and more than $1 billion to our state's economy. You know what? If it contributes $1 billion, let's take a portion of that and direct that back to bike trails.
Absolutely, let's do that.
Why are we not doing it? See, they've already got it. It's probably coming in through business taxes and things of that sort. Great. Let's take part of that $1 billion or add that tax, that sales tax for bikes onto that, and let's just take that and put it right back into biking trails.
$1 billion.
$1 billion with a B. Yeah.
I'd like to see $100 it's contributed to. If it really fail, wait a minute.
The sales taxes off of bikes. I mean, you sell one bike. If some of these bikes that these uppity people have cost a lot of money, and some of your, let's take a reasonable bike though. Let's say you go to Walmart and buy a bike for $100. I mean, with a sales tax of what, 7.125. I mean, for every $100 bike, that's over $7. And I'm sure that in Minnesota we do sell over 100 bikes a year. So
maybe, but is that what they mean by contributing $1 billion to the state's economy?
It could mean anything. It could mean that we're saving money. You know how liberals work, right? So it might mean, like not getting as much as you want is really a cut. Maybe because we are driving less and biking more, that we're not contributing as much to climate change, which means that we're saving money on the economy or wear and tear on roads is less.
You're grasping at straws here, man.
Well, that's what they do. They grasp at straws. I'm just trying to put that hat on and think like that.
Okay, now,
yeah.
So sales of bikes, sales of helmets, sales of their spandex
pads,
spandex pants where we can see all the cellulite, everything. I mean, that $1 billion. I mean, what is that? If there's a bike path between here and a business, is that contributing to? Is that part of the $1 billion that we're contributing?
Well, and that's a good question. If somebody, again, it is
probably
is an employee contributing to the state's economy by working.
It depends where they're working. In the private sector.
So if somebody bikes to a private sector job, are they contributing to the state's economy?
Yes, but I would argue if they're driving to work, they're contributing to the state's economy.
Right. You're right, and it should be fair both ways. But are they saying then that because somebody bikes to work, they're contributing part of that $1 billion to the state's economy because they're getting to work?
So if I pole vault to work, am I contributing? There's pole vaulting.
We don't have that stat, unfortunately. Nobody has compiled that. But
that could be claimed. I mean, that could be saying, okay, I go out to eat twice a month, and I'm contributing to the economy by doing that.
Right.
I watch a movie once a month.
Right.
I'm contributing. I mean, it's pie in the sky stuff. And I'll tell you, but I got to say this. There's nothing funnier than bike advocates. I mean, just the extremes they'll go to to try to get the point across about how great bike. And again, look, just because I'm too fat to ride a bike, I have nothing against people who do it. I did it a lot. I think it's great that kids do it. I'd rather see them biking than sitting on their phone or sitting in some internet chat room or sitting on Facebook. Sorry, I'd rather see it. I'd rather see them getting exercise and burning off steam. I'd rather see them, bike to the ball field and hit balls around like I did when I was a kid. There's nothing wrong with doing that, but I think when biking has become a major aspect of building roads, that at all places it has to be taken into account, is ridiculous. When I've got a town of 1,000 people, 9 of them own a bike. More own a shotgun, more own,
Yeah, right.
Everybody has a car because you just can't get everywhere without one. Why is it that I have to take biking into account?
Right. Well, I mean, they've got some other funny stats. They think that this is a positive. Like $1 million of bike and pedestrian infrastructure construction creates 11 to 14 jobs. So it takes 11 to 14 people to create one. For every $1 million they spend on a bike path, it creates 11 to 14 jobs.
That's pretty bad when you think about it.
That is pretty
11 bad. Jobs for $1 million?
Yeah.
That's not very good.
No, it's not.
Not to mention, since when does it... I thought it was job creators that created jobs. I thought it was business owners who did that.
Yeah, and that's it. And
same people that get demonized all the time?
Right, exactly. And they try to tout, that there are 41 bicycle-friendly businesses in Minnesota. How many companies do we have in Minnesota? Thousands?
Oh, who knows?
And we have 41 bicycle-friendly businesses.
Small businesses included, we probably have in the tens of thousands.
Right.
I mean, the big companies.
Yeah.
Cargill, Target, Best Buy.
Right.
We all know who the big companies are.
Right.
The small... There's
Jim's Bait Shop.
There's hundreds of... There's tens of thousands.
How dare Jim's Bait Shop not have a bicycle rack?
Yeah.
Shame on you, Jim's Bait Shop.
How about somebody's home-based business? I mean, how do you calculate that in there?
But, I mean, this is really telling as well. MnDOT has received $100 million in safe routes to school grant requests since 2005.
So, somebody's asking for MnDOT to get the free money.
Yes.
What's this website?
This is bikemn.org.
Right.
So I know we've gone off topic a little bit, but we wanted to prove a point.
Really.
We wanted to prove a point that they're asking for money, they're being granted money, but yet they're not paying in taxes to supply that stuff that is coming out of drivers' pockets.
Well, I mean, it's sort of like taxes are getting that way everywhere, though. I mean, look at the federal income tax. I mean, you've got the top 10% paying 70% of the taxes. You got 40% of the country paying nothing.
Right.
In income taxes. So they have no incentive to support any reform or any change.
Right.
They're getting things. Well, some of them aren't getting anything. They're taking it off their AGI, but they're not. Well, a tax cut doesn't indirectly affects you, but left to your own devices, you can go ask for anything you want because you're not paying for it. Same thing here. These bikers aren't being taxed. If they don't have a car, they're not paying gas taxes, license tab fees, motor vehicle sales taxes,
right,
or anything like that. So now they can go get some of that money to pay for their little habit, and they don't have to pay anything.
Right. I think we're on to something, Andrew.
Yeah, I think I'm getting angrier by the minute. BikeMN.org. I think a full community solutions analysis of BikeMN.org might be in the offering in the future.
I like the way that sounds.
Now remember, the bike sales tax of Minnesota. We can be creative here. I mean, the bike sales tax. We'll have to figure out, for every $1 million... What mile of road creates 11 jobs?
Every $1 million of bike path.
Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stimulate the economy. I'm going to put in $100 million tax on bikes. Why? Because for every $1 million, we create 11 to 14 jobs.
Right. Think of how many jobs that is.
Come on, you bikers. You want people to work, don't you?
They could bike to their construction jobs. It would be fantastic.
What's 100 times 11?
100 times 11? It'd be 1,100.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I can't do math right now.
Yeah, it was me last time, and now it's you, and that's all right. See,
once I run out of
the tide ebbs and flows here.
Once I run out of fingers and toes, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
So that's 1,100 jobs I am going to add to the economy of Minnesota. Maybe even 1,400.
That's pretty good.
You bikers, all you've got to do is pay $100 million in the bike sales tax. Hey, look, I'm using their numbers, right? How can they complain?
They can't.
So
that's rock solid right there. That is infallible.
Wow, I'll tell you what. Then those people are paying taxes, and I mean, we are stimulating growth by having the bike sales tax.
Wow.
BST. Just remember that. BST.
And you thought the government couldn't get anything accomplished. Look at this. This is like...
We've accomplished more in the last hour than they have in the last 20 years with this system.
Right.
The bike sales tax.
Governor Dayton, give me a call. All right. Oh, boy. Well,
I hope we gave you some great... I think we gave some great info out here.
I think so.
You hopefully made you think about, every time you fill up, every time you get your tabs, every time you buy a car, where that money is going and what it could be doing or not doing.
Right, and the fact that there's still a lot of confusion just because of how complicated the formulas are, depending on where you live to decide how much money you get for what.
0.000, whatever it was.
It's crazy.
I don't know who comes up with this stuff. You got too much time on your hands.
Yes.
But by the way, that free money ain't free. Feasibility studies, state aid, roads, making roads connected, blah, blah, blah. There's so much BS with it. MSA is just something that should just be scrapped. It should just be scrapped.
Agreed. So,
add it to the list of things that are on our poop list.
It would be 9% of taxes, gas taxes that could go back into state highways.
Or take that 9%
and not collect it.
Hey, how about that?
That's even better.
Or, here's the thing. The merry-go-round of money, again, how we talk about accountability and that removing that ability of local people to blame somebody else when something happens that they disagree with.
Right.
Oh, well, it's not our fault. Go call so-and-so. And I don't want to ever hear that again. I want a system where, no, you know what? Doing the local roads is your responsibility and nobody else's.
Yep.
Doing your parks are your responsibility. Your police department, don't take this para stuff and get rid of it. Local government aid and get rid of it. There's no incentive to shrink the size of government because somebody else is always paying the bill.
That's right. I mean, you go out to eat, somebody says, hey, I've got it. What do? You order something maybe a little more expensive than what you usually get.
Dinner.
You might not get the lobster and steak. You might not go surf and turf, but maybe you go up to a sirloin from a cheeseburger.
But you do, because let's say you're paying 60% of that bill.
Right.
Hey, well, for a cheeseburger, I can get it for X. There's $5 coming in from somebody else. I'm getting the steak.
Right.
And that's also, I blame city staffs for that and other people too. But, just something to think about. We tried to just explain, every time you fill up what you're getting, where the different taxes that you pay go. It's not all the same. And municipal street aid, the 60-40 split on the MVST, and the federal money coming in, which is just as terrible.
It sure is.
That's its own show.
Ugh.
BikeMN.org, BST, the bicycle sales tax. We have come up with something new here, and I love
it. I'd love it, too. As much as I hate taxes, I love that.
Yeah, and you know what? When I run for governor, notice I said when, not if. I am not signing a no new tax pledge because I am going to run on the bicycle sales tax. All right?
All right. That sounds good. You heard it here first, folks. Wow. Hey, this stuff is going on all over the state. You know, whether it's bike lanes or whether it's, complete streets or whether it's mixed-use development, and we want to be able to show everybody that the same stuff really is going on everywhere. The same stuff is going on in Roseau as is going on down in Wabasha, as is going on in Pine City, as is going on in
South
Albert
Africa.
Well, there's truth to that. There's truth to that. And I guess I could even say on a global level, we're all over the web. You can find our blog or our podcasts and all that are obviously at COMMsolutionsMN.com. That's COMMsolutionsMN.com. We've got links on there out to all our social media and stuff like that under the Contact Us page. I want you to send us pictures, because we can't be everywhere in the state. I mean, we get around. We see a lot of the state, travel around and talk to groups, give keynotes, and if you want a keynote address from us, let us know. We're more than happy to work something out. But I want you to take pictures of roundabouts, to take pictures of bike lanes, to take pictures of things that make no sense that your city has done, to take pictures and video and whatever of all the crazy development that has changed the face of your city. Send it to us at COMMsolutionsMN@gmail.com. COMMsolutionsMN@gmail.com. We'll put it up on our Instagram page, and we'll even source you if you have an Instagram account. Give us your handle so that we can tag you on it and give you credit. And we want to show that the same stuff is going on all over the state. So we are challenging you today. Get out there, take those pictures, and email them to us. We will put them out there for the world to see.
Yeah, and you'll do that because I don't know Instagram from Slip Disc. So you'll do that stuff. Just remember, if I can leave you with 3 letters, the BST, bicycle sales tax, 100 million will bring 1,100 new jobs to Minnesota.
Goodness. On that note, Minnesota, how do you follow that up? You really don't. Email us. Share us if you love what we do, because that makes you look like a local hero, because you're spreading the news to your neighbors, your relatives, and your community. And they don't know about this stuff, but you can tell them because you can share what we put out there on the internet.
One final thought.
Oh, boy.
This is going to be the show where I asked what 100 times 11 was. Just remember that. And you looked at me like I asked you, what was 1 + 1? Just thinking of that. What's 100 times 11?
We try to keep the show entertaining, folks, for your benefit. We carry no amount of pride ourselves. It's just all out there for you because
it happens when you're live like this. We're like Sinatra. We do one take.
That's it.
Sometimes your brain lapse with the math.
It happens. It happened to me not so long ago. All right. Minnesota, you've got the story. Now go spread it like wildfire and get us your pictures. We love you. Now it's your turn to get to work.
too caught